Live streaming is just waiting on Zoom to do it.
Nice.
And we are live. All right, welcome everyone. I'm here with Jeff Zananeri. Jeff recently turned a small account, about $5,000, into 500K, half a million. But to be fair, he did give back a little bit over these next couple of weeks. So everyone, welcome Jeff Zananeri. Jeff, say hi to the crowd out there.
What's up, y'all? Hey, Lance, how you doing, bro? Nice to see you, dude. Been a minute.
You as well. And got the iced coffee to get some espresso because I'm a little,
Traders are coffee addicts, by the way. You
yeah,
have to be. If you don't like caffeine, it's not going to be for you.
and straight espresso and milk out there because you need it to kick off. We got a gap down in the markets this morning. But Jeff, before we start talking about the markets, can you share a little bit? Because I've shared a couple tidbits about your run that you've been on these past, few weeks or so. But can you
Yeah.
give just a quick summary of how the hell did this happen?
So that's funny. We talk about, I've been trading for a long time. I don't know if people know me out there. I mean, they should, because I've been doing like what you do for a while and helping people, helping traders make money in options. And the bottom line is I'm like a connoisseur of chaos in the markets and volatility. Like I live for these moments. My wife jokes that I'm a vampire. And when the tariff thing like started, the rumors of it, and like when Trump started tweeting, as you know, I'm pretty MAGA, I'm pretty right, and whatever. I take that cap off when I'm trading. I'm only thinking about money. I
We're
don't
gonna get
care.
canceled now because you said
That's
you're
all right. We've
MAGA.
been canceled for a while. We've been canceled for a while. But anyways, so I've been following very closely what the president's been saying. He's been telegraphing to us, I'm going after China. I'm going after China. There are two things he was campaigning on. I'm going to get the illegals out of this country. I'm going to get the border under control, and I'm going to go after China. And he's been doing everything he said, so I had no reason to not take him seriously, right? So that started, and people were talking about, the tariff. It was Liberation Day. So I had like this big preparation. Volatility was still low. Like the VIX was still low, right? It was in like the high teens, low 20s. And he was saying all this shit, and people weren't taking him seriously leading up to that. So I'm like, how are we at like historically low volatility when this guy is about to like shake up the entire apple cart and reset the table in global economic structure? So I just started buying you VIXy calls, dude, like in a big way, and not
Oh,
and
you did
that
UVXY?
that yeah, that's what kicked off a lot of it. Like I kicked off my big move. I think the first move was like 5,000 into 50. I had like 1,000% trade, and I gave this trade to all my students on UVXY, and that was sometime in like mid-March, going into whatchamacallit, Liberation Day,
Yeah.
right? And I
The
told
market
everybody,
actually was rallying. Remember the day before? It actually rallied.
yeah, but I was telling people, I was telling all my students like, bye, bye. Just he's gonna smack, he's gonna come out in Rambo mode, dude. He's coming out swinging. So he did. It worked. And then, when I get into these grooves, and this is where like a professional trader is a little different. Like I spend a lot of time just dicking around in the market, trading like you. And we talk about this a lot, like $20,000 account, $15,000 putting on a couple of grand in an option. Hopefully it doubles, hopefully it triples, things like
Or goes
this,
to
right?
zero and no
But
big.
then I started seeing the tape and everything went on unglued and I was already like on offense. You know what I mean? So rather than just be like, okay, I made a great trade, I went full Rambo mode and I just started looking for stocks where the puts were cheap, started printing the puts. But I, like you, am a trader. I'm not a perma bear. I'm not a perma bull. So I started buying calls when it was that when VIX went to like 50. I was already out of the UVXY like 25% lower. I never get the top of moves or the bottom. That's another mistake a lot of rookies make. They think they have to sit there forever and capture that, like they think they mail you a cookie or some shit if you get the top bid. Doesn't matter.
Or it's back tested, which obviously is never real.
Yeah, it's not real life. So I had like 1,000% return, could have been like 1,500% or 1,600% if I sat the whole time. I didn't. I got out. I started buying calls. I was out. almost instantly on all my calls getting smashed. But I was like, at some point, these guys are they're gonna chill a little bit. They're gonna do something to get the market goosed again. They did that 90-day pause on Europe, and we had a 10% from low to bottom S&P move. NASDAQ moved like 15%
Right.
in one day. That was like 2 weeks ago. That day I went absolutely apeshit on my account. All my calls were like I
And
had.
that's when Trump tweeted that morning,
Yeah.
buy the dip, basically.
Yeah, and again, the guy told us what to do, and I took him seriously, or what he was going to do, or what you should do, and I took him damn seriously. And yeah, and so the rest is history. So I did stick around a little too long. I saw 500 turn. I took some cash out, and I saw 500 turn to about 400. Full to be fully clear, but that's because I started. That's because everybody who's options buyers, which we are, experienced, and this is good for like noobs to know. And I should have known this was my blind spot a little bit. We saw this huge vol crush. So even though I was directionally right on a lot of my trades that I still had on,
Right.
because we had such an elevated VIX and implied volatility priced into the premium of options, I was just getting smashed across the board in all my options. So normal life, but I'm still holding a lot of these things because I went longer duration um, at that point because I was like, all right, well, this is going to be a longer term play to play out. So now we're kind of in a no man's land. So that's the story of that. But now we're kind of like in this like post volatility explosion chop shop a little bit in the options. But there's still a lot of cool stuff to do, and I'm excited about this week. So I hope I didn't rant for too long, bro.
No, no, I think too, the market, you have the VIX came down so much, and we still have like a
Yeah.
VIX uh, over 30. So I think I don't think a lot of people realize we could have an elevated VIX. I mean,
Mm,
30 is nothing crazy, and the market can still, move higher even. Like I don't think we're gonna have a VIX go under 20 back to 17.
no way. Hell
Like
no.
there's
No.
that it's just that would be hopes and dreams, and I don't think we're going back to that environment. I think we're going to continue to see uh a little bit of elevated VIX, and kind of like today with these gap up and gap downs.
I agree
But
with you.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because a VIX,
Awesome.
you know
Is it crazy? It's awesome.
right, like a VIX
Awesome.
15, 16, 17, it's just really boring for the
There's no
market.
money to be made. That's why I
Right.
trade with smaller accounts when there's low vol and there's nothing to do. And like, this is the big concept people need to understand about options. So this is why, like I opened this new account to try to turn it into like a big account, and I did. It's because options are the best thing in the world to know how to trade when shit goes crazy, haywire in the markets. When everything goes crazy and you can get that optionality, because market makers and options are kind of like bookies in sports. They're always looking backwards and they're using the math based on like what the Dolphins score, for instance, for the first 6 games of the season. But let's say the Dolphins get like a trade and they get like Tyreek Hill in the middle of the season. Well, bookmakers don't know that all of a sudden the Dolphins are going to score an extra 7 or 8 points a game. They're thinking maybe he'll add 2 points, right? So
Right.
they're behind the curve. It's the same way in the options market when you have this kind of new volatility. They don't know how much a stock can actually move. They're like, well, it's usually it
Right.
moves 15% in a month, but now you're having stocks move 50, 60%. So if you're willing to absorb a little bit more risk, you get exponential returns, which is why when it's like this, I go into like Rambo Vietnam mode, dude. Like I trade around the clock. I don't sleep very much. I quit drinking for like, we like to party together when we get together. And
Yeah.
I told you about this. It was coinciding with Lent, which I always give up something for Lent. So I quit drinking because I was like, I gotta capture this moment. It's like the Eminem song. I was like, I gotta be all hands on deck. I gotta watch every news story that comes out. And so that's what happened. Now I think it slows a little bit, but vol stays high. I think there's going to be amazing opportunities. But what we just had, that like 45-day run through that Liberation Day like week after, was probably like some of the best trading I've personally seen since I don't even know when. COVID maybe. COVID wasn't even that
Yeah.
good. I wouldn't say great financial crisis maybe.
Yeah,
Yes.
you had like maybe a week or two COVID. You had the crash and the instant V, and then after the
That's not
initial,
what this is though.
right,
That's not what this is, man. Because
right,
the stock market just rebounded super hard.
right.
Dix went straight to zero again.
It's
Not
no
gonna happen.
V, right? It's
Yeah.
no V shape recovery, and I
And
think a lot of people like Tom Lee on CNBC kept promoting that out there and everyone, and then all those people just got wiped out. And
Well, you know why like we get along so I mean we get along because we have a similar personality type, but what we have in common in trading, you and I, and that a lot of people who do what we do don't have in common is that we fight with both hands. We trade both sides of the tape. We buy calls, we buy puts, we look for shorts, we look for longs. And we kind of like buy shit when it's cheap. We short shits that's expensive. We don't, we're not like trend followers. So trend
right,
followers
there you
have been
go.
having a
Yeah.
really hard time
Oh.
in this market. And I feel so sorry because we know some bad actors out there.
A lot. Jeff's gonna
They're
get me
hurting
canceled.
people. They're hurting people. They're
Yeah.
hurting people. In a time when you should be helping people and there's opportunity, they're telling everybody like, no, this is like this is gonna keep going up or like so for instance, like gold. I think gold's very dangerous for reversal here.
Oh yeah.
I think it's super, super dangerous.
Oh, everyone's on the long. I mean, I bought here. I am talking my book. I bought gold calls on Friday, and I'm gonna bust out of them, in 30 minutes when the market opens.
Yeah, that was a weekend play.
Right. Yeah, it's a
Good.
weekend trade. But I think everyone. I think there's two crowded trades. Everyone's long gold. Everyone's short crude.
Yeah.
So the reversal in crude could be extreme. You want to look for a short
TLT
squeeze?
also, I'm looking at. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
look at stuff. Let's look at
Yeah.
it.
You want to look at a short squeeze? Look at energy stocks.
Oh
You
yeah.
want to look for a huge move to the downside. I think gold. I mean, literally, it's like a Paris trade.
Yeah.
And
I like that a lot. I like that commodities trade a lot.
yeah,
But you know,
even even with the long bond, you go look at TLT. What do you think about bonds?
oh dude, this is my trade of the week. People love free trades, right, Lance? Well, I'll
They
give them a
love it.
trade, man. Let's look at some TLT. You want me to
Can
share
you
the
screen
screen?
share? Yeah, let's see if we can pull you up. Let me know. I might have to give you permission.
All right, share. Let me know if you're seeing
Yeah,
the Bloomberg.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing we have to look at always, when we're looking at TLT, people don't really like they think of it in reverse. They look at the TLT price like that matters. It doesn't. It's an ETF that's basically just holding 10 years and 30 years. So you get an average of that, which is why it's called the 20-year
20 year.
ETF. It's just an average. They hold 50% or 10 years and 50% of the portfolio is 30 years. Anyways, what we have to pay attention to is the yield. So as the yield goes higher, the price of TLT goes lower, right? And so when Liberation Day first got announced, this was the correct move. This is the move that's going to continue because I this is still pretty much a bearish trend. Now it's breaking a little bit, but they want rates lower.
Lower.
They're going to force rates to be lower. Trump wants to fire
Foul.
our boy, the crony in chief, Jay Powell, who's to me a criminal. I mean, we have inflation in the first place because
Of
this
him.
guy was a year behind the curve in having
Him and
interest rates
Yellen.
at zero. Huh? Yeah.
Him and Yellen.
Yeah. And so like now he's like, well, I'm worried about inflation, but he wasn't worried about inflation when home prices tripled, when food prices quadrupled, when car prices, used
Yellen said the
were
same
more
thing.
expensive than new cars. He didn't care about that, but now he cares. So whatever, whatever. That's my
Even Yellen
rant.
just said at a speech the other week, oh, and yeah, inflation is very high.
Yeah.
It's running rampant. And it's like you always said their whole goal was to keep inflation
They're
2%.
political actors. They
They
didn't
are.
want to admit
Yes.
to inflation when
With
Biden was
Biden in
president.
office.
Now they have Trump. They hate Trump. They don't want to help Trump. But anyways, Trump wants rates lower. So does Besant. Besant's a really smart dude. He ran billions and billions.
He
In
ran
a
for
bond trade. Yeah.
Soros. He
He
was
was
running
their
for
biggest
Soros.
bond. He was their biggest bond. So what's important about this is he knows this number better than anyone in the world. Or maybe five people know it as well as he does. Okay. And so this guy, and has been saying this since he was the Secretary of the Treasury, we need 10-year to go lower, right? So 10 years gone higher. The inverse of that is TLT
Yep.
has gotten smashed. So you're going to see that in a second here. So the TLT is this blue line here. So if we look at on the left side here, TLT, which was $92 at the beginning of April, in the pre-market now is like 86 and a half. It's down here because rates are up here, right? And more importantly, the 30-year, which I'm about to show you, 30-year yield, and this is where they step in also. This is where they really step in. Um, is near 5%, dude.
I
Uh,
know.
yield, you know? So they don't want that. So I think that they're going to step in. Um, they're going to step in this week and they're going to goose the bond market. For some reason, it's not giving me the yields. Okay, anyway, so let's look at this TLT.
And
Um,
this is pretty liquid. If you're new
yeah,
and you don't know, like what how do I trade it? TLT is very, very liquid. It's ETF.
yeah. So TLT, look how below the moving average it is. Moving average, the 100-day moving average is 89.50, 50 days 89.86. I think we're going to get a snapback this week to these numbers. So I'll be looking at calls, 87 calls this morning. So if you want to share that, um, I like the weekly 87 calls in the TLT all day.
And they're not vol's not too expensive in TLT. I mean, it's way more than it was historically because you're having such wild swings, but
Yeah.
it's not like buying NASDAQ calls or
No.
puts where they're still pretty, juiced in the options out there. Well, Jeff, we got about, let's say, 10 more minutes or so.
Yeah.
I was talking to some people, and I know you have been down in Miami.
Mm.
What do you think? Because we are seeing rates still elevated in the economy. And like, I'll
Okay.
give you an example. I'm trying to sell a couple classic cars.
Yeah.
The housing market, even in Tampa, has slowed down. Miami,
Yeah.
which is like the
Flowing.
hottest market out there. It feels like no one wants to take out money to buy stuff because A,
No.
rates are high, or B, they just feel not as rich as they were. I know,
Yeah.
you know, everything. I'm getting
No, I
dealer
know.
car
Businesses
dealerships
are
giving me
slowing down,
calls.
man. Yeah.
People are desperate for sales. It's not booming like it was. So what happened? So obviously Trump wants to have lower rates, and that's why the whole
Yeah.
Powell thing right now is because cheaper money, more people can spend.
And it's going to happen at some
But
point. It's
but
going to be
let's look at the other
by
side
hook or by crook. Yeah.
and say, let's say we don't get lower rates instantly, right?
Yeah.
What if we remain at an elevated rate environment? Let's at least say to like,
Well,
I
this
don't
is
know,
why
14
rates
a
always
year.
end up lower. And the timing of it is difficult, but this is why they end up lower no matter what. Because they could artificially lower them, right? Which is what they would want the Fed to do by lowering the Fed funds rate. That doesn't have to happen, right? But the market, if we actually start to truly crash, let's say we do another 10% down in the S&P, another 15% down in the
Which could
NASDAQ,
happen.
could happen in a week. It
Right.
doesn't even, we've seen 8% moves in a day. Um, if that were to happen, um, Jay Powell would have a wholly different song to sing. We'd be in a recession at that point. It'd be bona fide that we're in a recession. Now, what's interesting about right now, this moment in time, Lance, is we also have a lot of earnings coming out this week, right?
Yeah.
We've got a shit ton of semi earnings. We've got big tech. We've got Google. We've got
Next
Intel
couple of weeks.
next couple of weeks. So corporate America is going to tell us how they feel. And if that corroborates with Main Street, which we know very well, then rates are going to come down because they're going to have to, because they're going to start being pricing in a recession. Right now, we have actually an artificial like this, and this is where I maybe can get a little bit woo and a little wonky and a little bit theoretical. But here's what I think is happening in the bond market. I think the Chinese and some other bad actors out there that hate the United States and are in a hot war, a hot economic war with us, are dumping treasuries. They're flooding the market with treasuries and they're smashing the dollar against their own interests in the short term to try to create a pressure point for Trump. I think that our treasurer is a genius and he knows this and he's trapping them. He wants them to sell us back their bonds in the basement at very low prices before they start their process of goosing rates lower. Just a theory, but that's what I would do if I were him. If I was playing chess or playing poker, I would set a trap to smash somebody's ass if I had the nuts. That's how you play poker.
Right.
You don't
And
just
they
get a
can.
little, huh?
And he can.
And he can. Listen, if you got pocket aces and an ace hits the flop and a king hits the flop and somebody's betting big, he's probably got triple kings. You can't go out of that pot without taking all of that
Right.
person's money. And Besson's thinking the same shit right now about this game that he's playing with the bond market because they're playing a game. So we have to always think about what would an expert do? Like, what's the game being played here, and how do I play it with them rather than fight them, rather than be mad about it, sad
Right.
about it, hate the president, hate these people? think about it in terms of like a game theory. Like what are these people doing? Why are they doing it? Why are these prices moving the way they're moving? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the number one thing too is you have a lot of people who are just sitting out right now, or
Hmm.
they are confused or don't know what to do, and they see their retirement accounts down
They
or
should. They should
right.
sit.
And they just say, "Hey, I hope the stock market comes back and it just goes, VIX goes down and the market just goes up and everything is great." But the wake up call is that ain't going to happen. I mean, it's not how
No.
it was every other previous time. If you don't adapt to this,
I think the bond trade is much easier than the stock trade, right?
I do too. I
And
do
the
too.
commodities trades you mentioned also are easier than the stock
Well,
trade.
yeah, and commodities historically trend a lot better than stocks, especially
Yeah.
like tech stocks. I mean, and you do have the like I'm seeing all the Nvidia, Roblox, Tesla, Google,
It's
Meta,
just too news driven,
Netflix.
dude. The
No, I
news,
mean,
yeah.
I'm seeing all these different news hit
Yeah.
about these analysts, talking about where they Jefferies, Barclays, Bank of America. None of that matters. Like these people are all idiots, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, trying to
Or
decide,
they're criminal, or they're crooked, and
yeah,
they're just
trying to
talking their book.
decide
Yeah.
what they're downgrading Nvidia this morning and then probably buying the stock. Trying
Yeah.
to
That's
pick
what they're
that, you're
doing.
going to go crazy doing right now.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
And
and I think what I try to do in this type of tape, and I think you do it too, and it's really important for our students out there, new traders to know, is that you always want to, in a complicated and a chaotic environment, you want to shrink the game. You don't want to look at 50 different stocks
right,
because they're moving so much, you get overwhelmed. So I trade indexes a lot too right now. I've been making a lot of money trading zero DTE, but like next day expiration, but in the opposite way of our person
and
that
not
we
day trading them.
not day trading them and not trending, not going with the trend. I'm not buying puts this morning in the queues. I'd be buying
Right,
calls with
right.
the queues down a lot, right? I'm
Well,
not
I
looking
we know
backwards and second
I know a
guessing.
lot of people who are buying puts in the hole and then
Yeah,
buying calls at the top of the day, and I see some of these guys
they're
trying
not
to trade.
traders. When I see people do that, I know you're not a trader.
You're
You never
right.
traded pro, you never like ran money for anyone because that's crazy. That's
You're
just
a Monday morning quarterback.
and the risk, and that's the easy thing to do, and the risk reward in that is
It's
terrible, and
horrible.
everything is bad about it. That, but whatever. I digress.
Yeah, I'm just a little, I guess you could say, upset of all the bad information I'm seeing out there because
Yeah.
people trading
Well,
wrong.
in normal environments, Lance, you don't hurt people. It's not a big deal because you
Right,
get
no big
barely any
deal.
move. A stock will move like 0.5%. You're out 20% in the
Right, and
option.
the
No
option
harm,
move.
no foul. It's
Right,
okay. You'll survive. But now you put somebody in a put this morning and we get a 3% face ripper on the open
you're
close. That's a zero. It's a
right.
zero. Like you'll never like the people aren't going to cut their losses in 50 seconds at
No,
half down. They're going to be sitting in a put that is worth that's down 80% to 90% within 5 minutes. That's
right.
possible in
Yeah.
this kind of market. And so how do you if you're doing that to people, you sure as hell better have 400, 500% winners on the next one. And with that type of strategy, you can't. So I don't know.
No, I mean, and
Whatever.
really the only thing that how you're going to get those huge winners is trading cheap options, short dated options.
That's right.
Because if you're trying to go out in time buying expensive options that are already literally they're already priced to perfection and already calculated that huge implied move, you're just not gonna you're not gonna get it. I mean, it
No,
just to
no.
make money with options, especially cheap options, you need a greater than expected market maker move, something
Yep.
that hasn't been accounted for the price.
That's what
And
we're talking
right
about.
now,
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything.
everything has been accounted for basically.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing out of thin air, right? You're going
No.
to have to catch something overnight.
You need to catch something. You need a big news story overnight that nobody
Right.
saw.
Right,
Right.
exactly. That
Right.
nobody else saw. And that's
Yeah.
really the big way to make money in the
Yeah.
market right now. By the
Yeah.
way, I bought some Hertz puts on Friday.
All right.
I'm curious how it's down to like 10-12%, but I'm
Yeah.
curious how much the puts move because the stocks ran up 100% in 2 days. So like the puts might only be up 25-30%, I think.
They should be up like 50% at the latest.
I got May, so but I'm
Yeah.
curious how much if vol stays elevated or not. I'm a little,
Yeah, it's always disappointing when it's like, like the ZT, like those IPOs and stuff, or
oh
like some of
God,
the,
jeez.
when
Yeah,
everybody knows that they're going to go down 80% and like you can't make money in
you
those options.
can't.
And people
Like,
want to, and they try to, and I'm like, that's not a trade. That's not an option to
yeah,
trade. Just
they're implying like a 20% move a day on what is it,
And that's the same thing. Like
CMWW?
that's a big cautionary tale we have to give people for earnings season. So I'll come back if y'all want me back. We could do earnings next week or do like an earnings play, take a look at an earnings option series
Oh,
because
we got, dude. There's going to be
yeah,
a
but
ton
like
of
with this
earnings play.
already like 30 plus VIX and then like you have like single stock
Dude, you're having
realized
Google move
vol. Yeah,
4-5% a day.
I know. So
That's
on
like a
earnings, they're expecting a 15%, 12% move. That's not going to
right.
happen. It never.
You would get a 5% move on Google earnings like a year ago, and that was considered like a big move.
A
And so
normal day. It's a normal day's price.
now it's a normal
It's
day.
an S&P 500's high, day range. So people don't try this at home. If this is a tough tape for you, you can sit it out. You can wait. It's going to become much easier. If you are skilled and you can execute your plan, fuck, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
It's go time.
Or
But
just sell premium like I've been doing on
that's good too.
SPX, XXP. And
All
I
right,
mean,
brother. I gotta
that's it.
bounce.
Yeah, I got to
We
go
gotta get ready
too.
for the trading day.
I'll upload this to YouTube. Make sure in the comment section you write a message if you like this or not. And if so, we'll bring it back. And if you have any questions for myself or Jeff, put that in the comment section below. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. It helps with the YouTube algorithm
All
and
right.
subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll throw it back if you guys and girls want some earning plays. We'll come back next week and go over. We got Netflix this morning. It didn't even move though. They did it Good Friday. So we want to talk real stocks, the big earnings.
That's some information though too. I mean, they had good earnings and they did what a lot of companies are not doing. They provided forward guidance and
Yeah.
nobody cares.
Yeah. And it's literally a non-event. I
Nobody
mean,
cares.
yeah. So
It's scary.
the big names will be Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple. Those are going to be like the real big money movers out there that and make an impact, especially
Apple and
on
Amazon
the
are very
market.
interesting to me.
I
I
wouldn't be
don't know how
shocked if
Amazon has a business after this.
I don't know. I know they did the iPhone exemption and shit like that from tariffs, but I don't know how Apple they haven't cracked that thing yet. Like cracked it to where you see
Yeah,
Apple down like 10, 15, 20%. If that happens, market's going to get crushed. A lot of people are still long Apple from years ago.
I
If they
know.
start taking heat, oh, that's going to be some pain.
Well, let's see.
Yeah,
Let's
we'll
see.
see.